They underestimated humanity until it was already too late. Story overview: a HFY, humanity fuck yeah. Science fiction epic told in third person, following humanity's rise from perceived weakness to galactic significance through the eyes of both human and alien characters. Part 1. The dismissal setting, the year 2347. The Galactic Assembly, a council of 47 advanced species, convenes on the orbital station Apex Prime to discuss the newest discovery: humanity. Key characters: Captain Day, a pragmatic human diplomat and former military officer representing Earth's first contact delegation Hana, a brilliant xenobiologist on Day's team, eager to prove humanity's worth Taravel, Velkarian, the Assembly's supreme arbiter, a towering crystalline being with millennia of experience Kixthor, Heptari, a seven-limbed warrior representative who views humans as potential slaves. Plot points: humanity's delegation arrives at the Assembly, hoping for membership and trade agreements. The galactic species are dismissive. Humans are classified as a Category 5 species. Weak gravity worlders, short-lived, technologically primitive, and evolutionarily stunted. Key weaknesses identified: fragile bodies, emotional decision-making, inability to survive in extreme environments, without suits, slow natural evolution. The Assembly offers humanity a protectorate status, essentially making them vassals under Heptari oversight. Captain Day refuses the terms, requesting 50 years to prove humanity's value. The Assembly laughs, but agrees, finding it entertaining. They give humanity 25 years instead. Humanity leaves humiliated but determined. Themes introduced: underestimation based on physical characteristics, human adaptability versus alien specialization. Part 2. The Quiet Revolution setting years 2347-2365. Earth and its colonies undergo rapid, desperate transformation. Key characters: Dr. G1, a cybernetics pioneer leading the Human Enhancement Program. Commander Taman, head of the new Expeditionary Corps, testing human limits. Bora, a young volunteer for the Deep Space Survival Program Yule, an engineer revolutionizing human ship design plot. Points: Earth mobilizes its entire civilization toward one goal: proving adaptability. Dr. G1's team develops neural interfaces that allow humans to process information at speeds rivaling synthetic beings. Humans begin enhancing themselves, not replacing biology, but augmenting it in ways the rigid alien species never considered. Commander Taman leads expeditions to hostile worlds the aliens deemed uninhabitable, establishing colonies through sheer determination and ingenuity. Bora becomes the first human to survive unassisted on a high-gravity world through a combination of exoskeleton technology and biological conditioning. Yule's new ship designs incorporate modular technology, allowing rapid adaptation, something the aliens' specialized vessels cannot match. The galactic community barely notices, dismissing these achievements as desperate thrashing. A Heptari patrol encounters a human mining operation on a radioactive moon and attacks, expecting easy victory. They are shocked when the humans fight back with unconventional tactics, adapt mid-battle, and force a stalemate. Themes developed: humanity's greatest strength is versatility, the power of collective determination, innovation born from necessity. Part 3. The Awakening setting years 2365-2370. Humanity's achievements begin catching attention and concern. Key characters: Admiral Kyung, leader of Earth's growing defense fleet Soman, a human trader who becomes a cultural bridge Tarvel, now watching humanity with growing unease. Rilakesh. Forthani, a neutral alien scientist fascinated by human biology. Plot points: human colonies now exist in environments no other species could colonize without massive terraforming. Soman establishes trade relationships, and aliens discover human art, music, and culture. Complex emotional expressions that resonate in unexpected ways. Dr. Rilkesh publishes a controversial paper, The Endurance Paradox: Why Humanity's Weaknesses Are Actually Strengths. The paper notes, humans' emotional drive creates motivation beyond logic. Their short lives create urgency other species lack, and their physical vulnerability has made them master tool users and innovators. Several minor species begin seeking human partnerships, attracted to their adaptability. The Heptarii grow concerned about losing influence and demand the assembly revoke humanity's trial period. Taravel reluctantly agrees to review humanity's progress. Admiral Kyung presents humanity's case. 200-plus colony worlds in extreme environments, technological advancement equivalent to 500 years of typical development, and defensive capabilities that now match mid-tier galactic powers. The Assembly is stunned but still votes to reject full membership. However, they upgrade humanity to Provisional Associate status. The Heptarii, furious, begin planning a corrective action. Themes developed recognition comes slowly, even with proof fear of change in established orders. The Danger of Wounded Pride Part 4, the breaking point setting year 2371. The Heptarii launch a peacekeeping invasion of human space. Key characters: Admiral Kyung, leading Earth's defense Captain Day, now commanding the flagship Unity Hana, using xenobiology knowledge to predict enemy tactics. Minho, a young pilot, who becomes a symbol of resistance. Kixthor, leading the Heptarii assault, confident in swift victory plot points. The Heptarii fleet of 300 warships enters human territory, expecting surrender within days. Kixthor broadcasts ultimatum: submit. To protectorate status or be pacified by force, Admiral Kyung responds, "You mistake our patience for weakness." The war begins, and everything the aliens believed proves wrong. Human ships, smaller and weaker, fight in coordinated swarms using tactics no species has seen humans employ: psychological warfare, exploiting the Heptarii's rigid military doctrine. Minho's squadron uses asteroid fields and debris in ways the aliens never considered. Environment as weapon. Captain Day leads a daring assault on the Heptarii command ship, boarding it with Marines who've trained in 3x gravity. Hana's team deploys biological countermeasures that disrupt Heptarii communications without harming them, showing both capability and restraint. The war that should have lasted days stretches to months. Other species watch in shock as humanity not only resists but starts winning. The climax: Kixthor faces Captain Day in the ruins of his command ship, finally understanding humans don't fight like any species he knows because they adapt to each fight. Kixthor retreats with 40% of his fleet destroyed. Themes develop: true strength versus perceived strength. Adaptability in crisis. The Cost of Arrogance Part 5. The New Era setting years 2372-2375. The aftermath and humanity's emergence as a galactic power. Key characters: Ambassador Hana, now leading human diplomatic efforts. Tarvel, facing the Assembly's reckoning. Dr. Jiwan, sharing human augmentation technology. Soman, building the new multicultural trade network. Kira, a human child born off-world, representing the next generation. Plot points: the Heptarii sue for peace, their military pride shattered. Emergency assembly session convened to address the human question. Ambassador Hana addresses the assembly. "You judged us by what we were, not what we could become. That was your mistake." The assembly realizes humanity's true threat isn't military, it's ideological. Humans prove that lesser species can rise. Dozens of species previously dismissed by the assembly begin seeking human partnerships and technology. Tarvel, humbled, advocates for full human membership and a restructuring of the assembly's hierarchy. The vote: 31-16 in favor of humanity's full membership. Jiwan begins sharing enhancement technology with species who were deemed too weak by the old order. Soman's trade networks bring together species who never interacted before, with humans as cultural mediators. A new crisis emerges at the Galactic Rim, an unknown threat that stumped the assembly for decades. Young Kira, representing the first generation of humans born among the stars, volunteers for the expedition. The story ends with a human-led coalition heading toward the unknown, carrying a new philosophy. There are no lesser species, only untapped potential. Final scene. Ambassador Hana stands before a memorial to those who died, proving humanity's worth. Captain Day, now retired, joins her. Was it worth it? She asks. They underestimated us, Day replies. Until it was already too late. Not too late for war. Too late to stop us from changing everything. They watch as ships from 100 worlds depart together, humanity's greatest strength now shared. The refusal to accept limitations. Themes concluded. Perseverance against systemic bias. Transformation of society through example. Hope and potential as galactic forces. Legacy of those who refuse to give up. Core story. Themes. HFY elements. Human adaptability, endurance, emotional. Strength, tactical creativity, and never say die attitude. Underestimation. Every alien assumption about humanity proves wrong when tested. Evolution. Not biological, but technological, cultural, and philosophical growth. Unity. Humanity's ability to work collectively under pressure. Change. One species refusing to accept their place changes the entire galactic order. Writing style notes. Third-person limited perspective, rotating between characters. Balance military action with diplomatic, intrigue and personal moments. Show alien perspectives to highlight their genuine shock at human capabilities. Avoid making aliens evil. They're simply wrong, bound by their own limitations. Emphasis on show don't tell for human strengths emerging. Through action, each part should have emotional weight alongside plot advancement. Dr. Jiwan stared at the neural interface prototype sitting on her laboratory table. It looked like a simple metal band, but it represented 3 years of desperate research. Behind her, displays showed brain scans, electrical patterns, and data streams that would have been impossible to process just months ago. Are you ready? Asked her assistant, checking the monitoring equipment. Jiwan picked up the device and placed it against her temple. Start the sequence. The world exploded into information. Numbers, images, calculations, all flowing through her mind at incredible speed. For 10 seconds, she processed data faster than any computer humanity had ever built. Then the interface shut down automatically and she gasped for breath. It works, she whispered. It actually works. This was what humanity had become in the 18 years since Apex Prime. While the galaxy forgot about the weak species from Earth, humans had been transforming themselves. Not just technology, but everything. Across the solar system, Commander Taman stood on the surface of a moon that should have killed him. The gravity was twice what Earth had. The radiation would have fried an unprotected human in minutes. The temperature swung from boiling to freezing every few hours. He was breathing the thin atmosphere through modified lungs. His bones had been strengthened with carbon lattices. His skin had been treated to resist radiation. He wore an exoskeleton that made the crushing gravity feel normal. Base, this is Taman. Colony site is viable. Beginning construction. Back on Earth, they had called him crazy. Humans couldn't survive in high gravity. They couldn't adapt to radiation. They couldn't handle extreme environments. The aliens had said it. Everyone believed it. But Taman was standing here, alive and healthy, doing what the galaxy claimed was impossible. And he wasn't alone. 50 other volunteers were scattered across hostile worlds, proving that humanity could go anywhere. On a trading station near the galactic rim, Soman smiled at the alien merchant across from her. The creature looked like a collection of tentacles, and it was clearly uncomfortable dealing with a human. Your people have a reputation for weakness, the merchant said carefully. We do, Soman agreed. She pulled out a data crystal. This contains samples of human music, art, and literature. I'm not asking you to buy it. I'm giving it to you as a gift. The merchant's tentacles twitched with confusion. Gift? Why? Because we want you to understand us. Not as the assembly describes us, but as we really are. Later that cycle, the merchant listened to a human symphony. The emotional complexity surprised it. The merchant had never heard anything like it from any species. Music that could make you feel joy and sadness at the same time. Art that asked questions instead of just showing answers. Maybe humans were more interesting than the assembly claimed. Engineer Yule floated in zero gravity, watching workers assemble the newest human ship design. It didn't look like traditional vessels. Instead of one large hull, it was made of dozens of modules that could be rearranged replaced or upgraded quickly. The aliens build specialized ships, Yule explained to a visiting inspector. Fast ships. Strong ships. Cargo ships. Each one perfect for its purpose. But if the situation changes, they're stuck with what they have. And ours? Ours adapt. A cargo ship becomes a warship in 6 hours. A science vessel becomes a colony ship in a day. We're not trying to be perfect at one thing. We're trying to be good enough at everything. The inspector nodded slowly. This was the philosophy driving all of humanity's progress. Not perfection. Versatility. On a high-gravity training world, Bora finished her 3rd year of conditioning. She had volunteered to be the first human to survive on a heavy world without mechanical assistance. The process had been brutal. Genetic therapy, bone strengthening, muscle enhancement, constant training in crushing gravity. She stood now under 3 times Earth's gravity, breathing normally, moving without difficulty. Her body had adapted in ways that shouldn't have been possible. She wasn't stronger than aliens evolved for high gravity, but she could function in their environment. That was enough. Test complete, she reported. Human biological adaptation confirmed. We can live anywhere they can. The data went back to Earth immediately. Within weeks, colony ships were being prepared for worlds the Assembly had deemed uninhabitable for Category 5 species. Years passed. Humanity spread like water, finding cracks in stone. They didn't conquer. They simply went to places no one else wanted and made them home. Radioactive moons, high-gravity planets, frozen worlds, burning worlds. Each one became proof that human weakness was a lie. Dr. Jiwan's neural interfaces became standard equipment. Humans could now think faster, process more, learn in days what used to take years. They weren't becoming machines. They were becoming better versions of themselves. But the galaxy barely noticed. The Assembly was busy with its own politics. The major species competed for power and resources. Humanity was still listed as Category 5, still dismissed, still forgotten, until the incident at Carrion Station. Bora was leading a mining team on a radioactive moon when the Heptari patrol arrived. Kixthor himself commanded the squadron, still angry about humanity's refusal 18 years ago. "This moon is in Heptari territory," his message boomed across all frequencies. "You are trespassing. Surrender immediately." Bora checked the star charts. They were in unclaimed space. The Heptari were lying, looking for an excuse to attack. "We are in neutral territory," she replied calmly. "Our presence here is legal. You dare question me?" Kixthor's ship opened fire. Bora's team scattered. They weren't soldiers, but all humans trained for combat now. The galaxy was too dangerous not to. They took cover in the mining tunnels, using the moon's terrain against the attackers. The Heptari expected easy victory. They were wrong. Humans collapsed tunnels on top of landing parties. They used mining equipment as weapons. They adapted their tactics every few minutes, never doing the same thing twice. They exploited every weakness in Heptari armor and doctrine. After 6 hours, Kixthor retreated. He had expected to crush primitive humans in minutes. Instead, he had lost 3 ships and dozens of warriors. The humans had suffered casualties too, but they had forced a stalemate. The incident couldn't be hidden. News spread through the galactic network. Humans had fought Heptari warriors to a standstill. Humans had defended their position against overwhelming force. Humans had won. On Apex Prime, Tarvel received the report with growing concern. The Supreme Arbiter reviewed human progress over the past 18 years. The numbers were troubling. 200 colony worlds in environments other species couldn't inhabit. Technology advancing at rates that should have been impossible. Military capabilities that matched mid-level galactic powers. Trade relationships forming with minor species. Cultural influence spreading through art and music. How had this happened? How had a weak, primitive species achieved so much so quickly? A scientist named Rilkesh published research that made many uncomfortable. The paper argued that humanity's supposed weaknesses were actually advantages. Short lives created urgency. Emotions created motivation. Physical fragility drove innovation. Inability to survive harsh environments forced technological advancement. Humanity succeeds not despite their limitations, Rilkesh wrote, but because of them. They are the most adaptable species we have encountered. The Assembly called an emergency session. They reviewed humanity's progress. They debated for days. Finally, Tarvel made a decision. Humanity has earned provisional associate status. They may participate in some Assembly activities. But full membership is still denied. Kixthor objected violently. They are becoming dangerous. We must stop them now. We cannot, Tarvel said quietly. They have broken no laws, attacked no one unprovoked. They are simply surviving better than we expected. But in private, Tarvel worried. The established order of the galaxy was built on the idea that strong species ruled and weak species served. Humanity was proving that weakness and strength were not so simple. 7 years remained until humanity's deadline. Tarvel suspected those years would change everything. Admiral Kyung watched through the viewport as 300 human warships assembled in formation. They were sleek and modular, nothing like the massive specialized vessels favored by other species. Each ship could reconfigure itself for different missions. Each crew had trained in tactics no other military used. 23 years had passed since that humiliating day at Apex Prime. In 2 years, humanity would return to make their case again. But Kyung suspected they wouldn't need to wait that long. Admiral, we're receiving multiple requests for defense contracts, his communications officer reported. 12 minor species want to hire human security forces. Kyung wasn't surprised. Word had spread about human capabilities. The incident at Carrion Station had been just the beginning. Human mercenaries had defended trade convoys against pirates. Human engineers had solved problems that stumped alien experts. Human mediators had settled disputes between species who had been fighting for centuries. Humanity was becoming valuable. That made them dangerous to the established order. On a distant trade world, Soman sat in a cafe with representatives from 5 different species. They were discussing art of all things. An alien poet had incorporated human metaphors into their work. A musician had blended human instruments with traditional sounds. A filmmaker had hired human actors. Your emotional range is fascinating, one alien said. It was a floating crystal entity that communicated through light patterns. Most species feel happiness, sadness, anger. Basic emotions. But humans experience things we have no words for. Nostalgia. Melancholy. Bittersweet joy. How do you function with such complicated feelings? Soman smiled. We don't just function with them. We create with them. Emotions drive our art, our music, our stories. They make us want to express ourselves, to communicate, to connect. It seems inefficient. Maybe. But it makes life richer. The conversation was interrupted by breaking news. The assembly had called another emergency session to discuss humanity. Someone watched the broadcast with interest. Tarvel stood before the gathered representatives looking tired. The Supreme Arbiter had been in power for 6 centuries, but the past few years had clearly worn on them. We must address the human question, Tarvel began. They have exceeded all projections. Their progress is unprecedented. They now control or inhabit 312 worlds. Their technology has advanced by what should have taken them 500 years. Their military can defend their territory against any single member species. Kixthor stood, anger radiating from his posture, which is exactly why we must act. They are becoming too powerful. They have broken no laws, Tarvel countered. They exist outside our control. They rejected protectorate status. They are encouraging other weak species to defy the natural order. That was true. Since humanity's rise, 43 minor species had petitioned for independence from their protectorate arrangements. They pointed to humanity as proof that weak species could thrive without supervision. The assembly was fracturing. Traditional powers like the Heptari wanted to crush this revolution. Moderate species urged caution. Minor species openly supported humanity. Rilkesh, the scientist who had published the controversial paper about human adaptability, spoke up. We have misunderstood the nature of strength. We assumed physical power and long lifespans made a species superior. Humanity proves otherwise. They survive through innovation, cooperation, and sheer determination. That is not strength, Kixthor roared. That is desperation. What if desperation is its own form of strength? Rilkesh asked quietly. The debate raged for days. Finally, a vote was called. Humanity would be granted provisional associate status with the assembly. They could attend sessions and participate in trade agreements, but they still could not vote on galactic matters. The vote was close. 31 in favor, 16 opposed. When news reached Earth, reactions were mixed. Many celebrated the victory. Others, like Admiral Kyung, were more cautious. Provisional status, he muttered. Still not enough. Captain Day, now older and bearing scars from the years of struggle, nodded. The Heptari voted against us. So did 15 others. They fear us now, and fear makes enemies dangerous. He was right. Within weeks, reports started coming in. Heptari patrols were harassing human ships in neutral space. Trade agreements were being sabotaged. Colonies were receiving threats. Kyung called a meeting with Earth's leadership. War is coming. Kixthor won't stop until he forces a confrontation. Can we win? Someone asked. Against the Heptari alone? Yes, but if other species join them, the odds get worse. Kyung pulled up tactical displays. We need to be ready. Not just our military, but everyone. Preparations intensified. Human colonies began building defenses. Trade ships were armed. Civilians received combat training. Everyone knew the peace was temporary. On the bridge of her research vessel, Hana studied Heptari biology and tactics. She was no longer the nervous young scientist who had first visited Apex Prime. 23 years of fieldwork had made her one of humanity's leading experts on alien species. Their military doctrine hasn't changed in 2,000 years, she told her team. They rely on overwhelming force and rigid command structures. They're strong but predictable. How do we beat them? We don't beat them head on. We adapt faster than they can respond. We use tactics they've never seen. We make them fight our kind of war, not theirs. Her research went to every human military unit. Knowledge was power, and humanity had learned to weaponize knowledge. Meanwhile, on dozens of worlds, young humans like Minho were training as pilots. He sat in the cockpit of a fighter craft, running simulations against Heptari warships. The alien vessels were bigger, more heavily armed, and had better shields, but they were also slow to turn, predictable in their attack patterns, and vulnerable to coordinated strikes. Speed and numbers, Minho's instructor told him. One human fighter can't beat a Heptari cruiser. But 10 working together? 20, we swarm them. We adapt, we survive. The training was brutal. Many washed out. But those who completed it were transformed into something the galaxy had never seen. Pilots who could think faster, react quicker, and coordinate more effectively than any other species. Back at Apex Prime, Taravel met privately with Rilkesh. The scientist had become an unofficial liaison between the Assembly and humanity. Can we avoid war? Taravel asked. Rilkesh was quiet for a long moment. That depends on whether Kixthor can accept what humanity represents, which is change. The entire galactic order is built on the assumption that powerful species deserve to rule and weak species deserve to serve. Humanity proves that assumption wrong. Every day they exist successfully, they undermine the system. So war is inevitable, unless the strong learn to share power willingly. Rilkesh's tone suggested they both knew that wouldn't happen. 1 year before humanity's deadline, tensions reached a breaking point. A human colony ship entered a system claimed by the Heptari. The system was officially disputed territory, but Kixthor declared it an act of invasion. His fleet moved to intercept. Admiral Kyung received the alert at 300 hours. He had been expecting this. Sound general quarters. Deploy the fleet. This is not a drill. As human warships launched from Earth and a dozen other worlds, Kyung sent one final message to Apex Prime. To the Galactic Assembly, humanity has sought peace. We have followed your laws. We have respected your territories. But we will not be bullied and we will not surrender. If the Heptari want war, they will have it, and they will learn what we have always known. Strength is not about size or weapons or age. Strength is about the will to survive no matter the cost. The message was broadcast across every galactic frequency. Billions of beings on thousands of worlds watched as humanity prepared to defend itself. Tarvel watched too, feeling something unexpected. Hope. Humanity had been underestimated from the start. Perhaps they would surprise everyone one more time, or perhaps they would be crushed and the old order would survive. Only war would tell. The Heptari war fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 300 warships, each larger than anything humanity had built. They arranged themselves around the disputed colony like predators surrounding prey. Kixthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, 7 arms clasped behind his back. Around him, officers prepared weapon systems and targeting solutions. This would be over quickly. 23 years ago, he had retreated from a handful of human miners. That shame still burned. Today he would erase it. Open a channel to all human vessels, he commanded. On the colony ship Hope, Captain Day received the transmission. He was older now, gray-haired and tired, but his eyes were still sharp. Behind him stood Hana, now his second-in-command and tactical advisor. Kixthor's face filled the screen. Humans, you have entered Heptari space. This is an act of war. Surrender your vessels immediately and we will be merciful. Resist and you will be destroyed. Day took a breath before responding. Around him, dozens of cargo ships and colony vessels waited. They weren't warships. They were full of families, children, people hoping for a new home. This system is disputed territory under assembly law, Day said calmly. We have as much right to be here as you do. Leave peacefully and there will be no conflict. Kixthor laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. You dare threaten me? You are nothing. Your ships are weak. Your people are fragile. You mistake our patience for weakness. I am finished being patient. No, Day said quietly. You mistake our patience for weakness. He cut the transmission and activated the emergency broadcast. All ships execute Protocol Omega. Good luck. The colony vessels scattered in different directions. It looked like panic. Kixthor smiled and ordered his fleet to pursue. He didn't see the trap until it was too late. From behind the system's moons and asteroids, human warships appeared. Not dozens, hundreds. Admiral Kyung had spent weeks positioning his fleet, hiding in the debris fields and using stealth technology to mask their presence. All units, Kyung transmitted. You know your targets, engage. The human ships moved unlike anything Kixthor had seen. They didn't form battle lines or try to match his fleet's strength. Instead, they swarmed like insects, moving in coordinated groups of 5 to 10 vessels. Each group targeted a single Heptari ship, attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. Break formation, Kixthor ordered. Engage independently. But his fleet's rigid training worked against them. They had practiced fighting other large ships in traditional battles. They didn't know how to respond to this chaos. Young pilot Minho led his squadron against a Heptari cruiser. The massive ship's weapons tracked them, but human fighters were small and fast. They wove through the cruiser's blind spots, firing at weak points Hana had identified in her research. Port shield generator, Minho called out. Focus fire! 20 fighters converged on a single point. The shield flickered and died. Immediately, they shifted targets to the exposed hull. The cruiser's armor was thick, but sustained fire in one location burned through. Target destroyed, someone reported as the cruiser's power systems failed. Reform and find the next one, Minho ordered. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. This was what they had trained for. On the Hope, Day watched tactical displays as the battle unfolded. Human losses were mounting. They were smaller, weaker, with fewer ships. But they were winning through sheer adaptability. Heptari battleship moving to intercept our medical vessels, Hana reported. Deploy countermeasure, Charlie. Human ships released clouds of metallic chaff that disrupted Heptari sensors. The battleship suddenly couldn't tell which signals were real ships and which were decoys. By the time it sorted through the confusion, the medical vessels had escaped. Kixthor roared in frustration. How are they doing this? They are weak, his tactical officer hesitantly spoke. Commander, they adapt faster than we can respond. Every time we adjust our strategy, they've already moved on to something new. They're just using technology and tricks. Is that not what warfare is? The battle stretched from hours into days. Heptari ships were individually superior, but human tactics negated that advantage. When the Heptari formed defensive positions, humans attacked from unexpected angles. When they pursued, humans led them into asteroid fields and used the environment as a weapon. Captain Day led a daring assault on Kixthor's flagship. Human Marines, trained in 3 times Earth gravity, boarded the vessel in armored suits. The Heptari were stronger and better armed, but humans fought with a desperate creativity that shocked their enemies. Hana had provided detailed information about Heptari ship layouts. Marines knew exactly where to strike. They disabled life support to sections, forcing evacuations. They used the ship's own systems against it. They even broadcast human music through the speakers. Psychological warfare that disrupted Heptari concentration. Day personally confronted Kixthor in the flagship's command center. The Heptari warrior towered over him, 7 arms ready for combat. You cannot win, Kixthor snarled. Even if you take this ship, my fleet will destroy yours. Day looked at the tactical display. The Heptari fleet was down to less than 200 ships. Human losses were heavy too, but they were still fighting effectively. Your problem, Day said, is that you still don't understand us. You thought we were weak because our bodies are fragile. You missed what makes us strong. And what is that? We adapt. To everything. To any challenge. You fight the same way you fought 1,000 years ago. We've created 3 new tactical doctrines just in this battle. You follow orders perfectly. We improvise constantly. You're strong, yes, but we're flexible. And in the long run, flexible beats strong. Kixthor charged, all 7 arms swinging. Day dodged, using his smaller size as an advantage in the confined space. He didn't try to overpower the alien. Instead, he fought smart, using the environment, striking at joints and weak points, staying mobile. The fight lasted 3 minutes. In the end, Kixthor lay defeated. Not dead, but unable to continue. Day stood over him, breathing hard. Surrender, Day said. Order your fleet to stand down. End this. For a long moment, Kixthor said nothing. Around him, his command crew had been subdued by human marines. His flagship was crippled. His fleet was being dismantled ship by ship. How? He finally whispered. We are superior in every way. No, Day corrected gently. You're superior in most ways. But warfare isn't about who's strongest. It's about who wants to survive more, and who can adapt faster to changing circumstances. On both counts, you lose. Kixthor transmitted the surrender order. Across the system, Heptari ships stood down. The battle was over. Human casualties had been severe. 40% of Kyung's fleet was destroyed or damaged. Thousands were dead. But they had won. A Category 5 species had defeated one of the galaxy's premier military powers. News spread faster than light across the galactic network. On 1,000 worlds, beings watched the footage in disbelief. Humans had won, not through luck or deception, but through better tactics, better training, and better adaptation. At Apex Prime, Tarvel watched the recordings 3 times. The Supreme Arbiter felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. Not fear of human military power, though that was concerning. Fear of what humanity represented. They proved the old order is wrong, Tarvel said to Rilkesh. If humans can rise from nothing to defeat the Heptari in just 2 decades, what does that say about our entire system? It says, Rilkesh responded, that we have been wrong about strength and weakness. And that change is coming, whether we accept it or not. Emergency assembly sessions were called. Species that had supported the Heptari suddenly demanded peace. Species that had been oppressed saw opportunity. The galaxy was watching humanity, and nothing would ever be the same. Captain Day stood on the Hope's Bridge looking at the stars. 25 years ago, the galaxy had laughed at humanity's weakness. They had underestimated human determination, human innovation, human refusal to accept defeat. Now those same species were afraid. And Day knew that fear could be more dangerous than contempt. The war with the Heptari was over, but humanity's real battle was just beginning. The battle to transform the galaxy itself. 3 years after the war, Ambassador Hana walked through the corridors of Apex Prime once again. The last time she had been here, she was a nervous young scientist watching humanity be dismissed as weak and primitive. Now she wore the formal robes of Earth's chief diplomat. An alien stepped aside respectfully as she passed. The galaxy had changed. More importantly, it was still changing. She entered the Grand Assembly chamber. Every seat was filled. Representatives from all 47 member species waited, along with delegations from 30 minor species who had petitioned for independence since humanity's victory. Tarvel stood at the center platform, looking older despite being a crystalline being. The Supreme Arbiter had seen their carefully ordered galaxy thrown into chaos, and the weight of it showed. This emergency session will address the human question, Tarvel announced. After review of all evidence, testimony, and recent events, a vote will be held on full assembly membership for humanity. Hana took her place at the speaker's platform. She had prepared a long speech, but standing there looking at the gathered species, she realized she didn't need it. 28 years ago, she began. Captain Day stood here and was told humanity was weak. Category 5, primitive, inferior. We were offered slavery disguised as protection, and when we refused, we were given 25 years to prove ourselves. She paused, letting the memories settle. You judged us by what we were, not what we could become. That was your mistake. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, some approving, many uncomfortable. We didn't try to become like you, Hana continued. We didn't try to match your strength or live as long as you or build the biggest ships. We became better versions of ourselves. We took our weaknesses and made them strengths. Our fragility made us innovative. Our short lives made us urgent. Our emotions made us creative. And our struggles made us determined. An alien representative stood. You make it sound noble, but you simply adapted to survive. Any species does that. True, Hana agreed. But we also proved something more important. We proved that the galaxy's entire system of classifying species is wrong. Strength isn't about how much you can lift or how long you live. It's about how well you adapt to challenges. By that measure, how many species here are truly strong? The chamber fell silent. This was the question that terrified the old powers. If humanity could rise from Category 5 to galactic significance in less than 30 years, what did that say about all the other weak species being held down by the system? Kixthor, present despite his defeat, spoke up. His voice lacked its former arrogance. Humanity won a battle. That does not make them our equals. We didn't just win a battle, Hana countered. We've established 300 colonies in environments you claim are uninhabitable. We've advanced our technology by centuries and decades. We've created art and culture that species across the galaxy now enjoy. We've formed alliances and trade agreements with species you ignored. We've proven that adaptation and determination matter more than raw power. She turned to address the entire assembly. But we're not here to gloat about our success. We're here to offer partnership. Because everything we've achieved we did by working together, by combining our strengths with those of other species. We don't want to replace the old order with ourselves on top. We want to build a new order where every species can reach their potential. Rilkesh stood to support her statement. My research confirms Ambassador Hana's points. Humanity's success comes from their ability to cooperate, to share knowledge freely, to see potential where others see weakness. They have shared their augmentation technology with any species who requested it. They have helped minor species establish independent colonies. They have offered military training without demanding control. They are disrupting the natural hierarchy, another alien protested. What if the natural hierarchy was always wrong? Rilkesh asked. What if we have been limiting ourselves by assuming some species are meant to rule while others serve? The debate raged for hours. Finally, Tarvel called for the vote. All in favor of granting full assembly membership to humanity? 31 hands, tentacles, and various appendages rose. Opposed? 16 opposed. The Heptari and their traditional allies, species who feared change more than anything. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Assembly, Taravel declared, with all rights, responsibilities, and privileges that entails. Hana felt tears on her face. 28 years of struggle, sacrifice, and loss, thousands dead in the war, billions of humans working toward this moment. And finally recognition, but the fight wasn't over. In the weeks following the vote, the galaxy began to transform. Dr. Jiwan's neural interface technology was shared with 30 species who had been classified as slow learners. Within months, these species were making breakthroughs in science and art that had previously been beyond them. Commander Taman led training programs, teaching other species how to survive in extreme environments. Colonies began appearing on worlds that had been considered permanently uninhabitable. Engineer Yule's modular ship designs were adapted by dozens of species. Suddenly, smaller civilizations could afford space travel without relying on larger powers for expensive specialized vessels. Soman's cultural exchange programs expanded massively. Human art, music, and literature spread through the galaxy, but so did alien culture reaching Earth. For the first time, the galaxy was truly sharing and learning from each other. On Earth, young Kira prepared for her first deep space mission. She was 15 years old, born in space, raised among aliens. She represented the next generation, humans who had never known a time when their species was dismissed as weak. Are you nervous? Her mother asked. Kira shook her head. The exploration mission is headed toward a mystery at the galactic rim, something the Assembly has been trying to understand for decades. They asked for human help because we think differently. How could I be nervous about that? The mission launched with a mixed crew. Humans, Heptari, Velcarians, and a dozen other species working together. Kixthor himself volunteered to join, seeking redemption for his past mistakes. On the ship's bridge, Kira worked alongside aliens who had once considered her species inferior. Now they were equals, learning from each other. At Apex Prime, Ambassador Hana stood with Captain Day, now retired but still influential. They watched the memorial wall, thousands of names inscribed in light, humans and aliens who had died proving that the galaxy could change. Was it worth it? Hana asked quietly. Day was silent for a moment. Every loss hurt. Every sacrifice was real, but yes, because we didn't just earn our place. We changed what place means. Some species still resent us. They will. Change is always resisted by those who benefited from the old system. But look around. He gestured at the station. 30 species have gained independence since our vote. 50 more are petitioning. Technology is being shared freely. Minor species are being heard for the first time in millennia. The galaxy is becoming something better. Hana nodded. It was true. Humanity's success had inspired a revolution. Not a violent one, but a revolution of ideas. The concept that weak meant worthless was dying. In its place, a new philosophy was growing. Every species had value. Every civilization had potential. Strength came in many forms. They underestimated us, Day said, echoing words from long ago. Until it was already too late. Too late for what? Too late to stop us from changing everything. He smiled. Not through conquest or domination. Through example, through proving that there's another way. Across the galaxy, the transformation continued. Former Category 5 species were rising. Old power structures were adapting or crumbling. Trade routes expanded. Cultural exchange flourished. Problems that had seemed unsolvable for centuries were being approached with fresh perspectives. The unknown threat at the galactic rim that had stumped the assembly, Kira's mixed species team would find an answer. Not because humans were special, but because the combination of different perspectives, different approaches, and different kinds of thinking could solve problems that homogeneous thinking could not. Years later, historians would mark humanity's arrival in the galactic community as the beginning of the Second Galactic Age. Not because humans were superior, but because they had asked the most dangerous question in any civilization. What if everything we believe about strength and weakness is wrong? Ambassador Hana watched ships from 100 worlds depart Apex Prime. Human vessels flew alongside alien ones, indistinguishable in purpose and spirit. This was humanity's real victory. Not defeating the Heptari, not gaining assembly membership, but inspiring the galaxy to see potential where it had previously seen only limitations. She thought about the young scientist who had first arrived here, trembling with nerves, watching humanity be dismissed and mocked. That person seemed like someone else now. The galaxy had changed her, and she had helped change the galaxy. Her communicator chimed. A new mission. Some colonies on the frontier needed help with hostile local conditions. They specifically requested human assistance because humans know how to survive impossible situations. Hana smiled. 28 years ago, that would have been an insult. Now it was a compliment. She left the memorial wall, walking past aliens who nodded respectfully. Above her, the stars waited.